Alright, we've had these bikes for a couple days now. Gonna do a little ride around the neighborhood, tell you what I think about them. I've mostly been riding the Z900, this Kawasaki. It is a blast. I haven't ridden the Yamaha yet. It's a Yamaha YZF R3. So we'll be taking that one out. Hi, Callie. Say hello. All right, let's hear her. She's loud. So one of the first things I noticed about this bike is that the fueling is very good from a standstill. It has no problems taking off smoothly. There's no jerkiness to it. It really just has a will to move forward. One of my first impressions of this bike is how easy it is to take off. Not only in acceleration, but just in general from a dead stop at a stop sign. It really just has no feeling of breaking the inertia. It just is happy to kind of move forward. Alright, let's talk about this guy. First off, let's hear it. This is a 4-cylinder, inline 4-cylinder. It's got an aftermarket exhaust running into one, so it's pretty loud. It's not so bad at idle, but upon revving, it has some pretty intense sound. I'm not very used to inline 4-cylinders, so this is a little bit new for me, but I have to say I like it. I just feel when I'm riding around these quiet neighborhoods, I feel a little obnoxious, but that's not very uncommon with any motorcycle. My scrambler is very loud, so I'm kind of used to that. And this is definitely not South Philadelphia. We are currently in South Florida. Jess and I came down here and we rented some bikes. Thought it'd be a really fun way to get our winter fix in, since it's a little cold riding up north these days. So we're down here in the Sunshine State enjoying some sports bikes. I would have to say the looks of this bike are very interesting. Not necessarily for me, but I will say that I think that this tank design and the way my knees wrap around it and just the overall rider triangle is very comfortable. So maybe the looks aren't, exactly what I would want. Specifically referring to this front end, I'm not super big on the headlight scheme, but it's effective. It definitely is bright enough for me at night, and I absolutely love this riding position. It reminds me a lot of my scrambler, but my hands are pretty relaxed. I'm not feeling like I have to lean forward too much. I have a good bend in the knees. The foot pegs are not super high or far back, so up here I feel pretty comfortable. And I wrap this tank really well. Got some tank pads and stuff on here as well, but I feel very comfortable on this tank. And don't mind me being in shorts and a lack of gear, because I just rode about 1.5 blocks from my parents' house to this lovely little park on the river, just so we could talk about this bike a little bit. I don't know much about its specs. I know it has a little over 100 horsepower, and boy is it fast. It just wants to go. It's a very smooth fast. I wouldn't say it's twitchy or jerky, but I also say I wouldn't want Jess to ride this bike at her current level of experience. I'm a little scared that it could just it could throw her for a loop. I've had some fun moments getting on the interstate with this, the on-ramps, getting it opened up, first, second, third gear, and it flies. I really don't have any negatives about it, other than it's just been an adjustment for me to ride a sports bike versus the feelings of riding our Triumphs, which are 2 cylinders and just a very different kind of power. The Triumph I have is 1200. This is just under 1000, so they're in the same ballpark, but this little 4-cylinder engine is peppy. I don't know if it's a great passenger bike. Haven't tried to have a passenger. I would say though, it just feels like it's pretty petite, very short. So having a person back here probably would not be comfortable. Plus this seat is about as hard as it looks. It's like sitting on a piece of wood. The dash is very straightforward. One thing I like about this bike is there's just a lack of any technology. Very simple setup. I do have some hazard lights. That's about as advanced as it gets. And the owner of this bike has a little toggle here for some lights up here. I guess you could call them fog lights, but they're green, so I think they're more for aesthetic purposes. Very simple tachometer across the top, a digital speedometer, some other information. Nothing too crazy. But nice thing about this bike, traditional key. I'm growing to appreciate traditional keys. The mirrors are decent. They're not perfect, but they're definitely not as bad as the other bike we're going to talk about soon, which is the Yamaha. I think those mirrors are, well, they're completely ineffective. And other than that, it was a solid rental. I really enjoyed it. I could see having a bike like this in Philadelphia. So let's ride it home and go get the Yamaha. Hear her purr. One thing about it too, this bike reminds me of my Shadow. It just starts so happy. It gives you no fuss when you're trying to start it for the first time during the day. It's always ready to go. That might just be a Japanese bike thing universally. They're all pretty happy motors. And I'm sure with the full system exhaust on here, the motor is nice and open and it feels good. But it's got some sound. Obviously, I'm just riding around in shorts right now in very minimal gear, so we're just gonna put back to the house. But it likes to make some sound. And it would probably be very fun in the twisties. It's a maneuverable. It's a very easy bike to maneuver. I think this bike would be a lot of fun in the twisties. We don't have a whole lot of twisties in Florida, so I'm not going to get to review it that way, but I can tell just by the balance and the way that it really will just go anywhere I want it to, that it must be very nimble. It's a little heavy at 460-ish, but it's a lot lighter than our bikes, so it feels good. One thing that I have noticed that's really difficult about this bike is the clutch. It's just like it engages so late, and every time I shift I feel like it's just jerking me because I'm expecting the throttle to engage a lot sooner than it actually does. And when it finally does engage, it always surprises me and kind of wants to take off a little bit. That's what I mean about the clutch. Watch when I shift. It's just like there's no smoothness. I'm sure I could learn how to be smooth, but in 5 days I wasn't able to figure it out. Nothing major. Honestly, I just had to get used to it because none of my other bikes react this way, but it was definitely the first thing I noticed. Alright, let's ride the Yamaha. Alright, so I haven't even rode this bike yet. This will be its maiden voyage for me. Jess has been riding it. It was pretty good for her. It's very light. 360 pounds, something like that, so it's about as light as a street bike gets. It's a 2-cylinder engine, 320 cc's. It's the Yamaha YZF R3. A lot of describing letters, but it's basically a 300cc sports bike. All right, let's hear it. Definitely a very different sound. Alright, first impressions of this bike is that it feels pretty smooth, but it's making a lot of noise for going 15 miles per hour. It definitely has some power though. I mean, for a 300cc engine, my shift from second to third gear there felt really pretty powerful. Let's ride this one around the neighborhood a little bit and just kind of feel it. I will say I love this exhaust tone though. It's a good sounding exhaust. This is also a full system. So both the bikes we rented came with nice full system exhausts. I have to say the twin cylinder is very nice on this. The bike is feeling pretty smooth at these low speeds. And I like the way it revs up. It revs up real calm. Like it wants to keep going. It definitely doesn't want to be shifted early, but it feels very happy to move up in the gears. Oh yeah, it feels happy, that's for sure. But it also, you can tell it's a 300cc engine. You can tell that you could give it a handful and it's not going to go anywhere on you, which I personally like. I mean, this was a rental, so for Jess to get off an airplane, jump on a crotch rocket and not feel overwhelmed, that's a pretty nice thing to have. Plus it's also, being a 300cc engine, it's very efficient. This thing, we've only put some gas in it once so far in our journeys of riding all around Southwest Florida. Downshift's really nice, not too much jerkiness. But it's so loud for what it is. That's so funny. Like I just went through first, second, and third gear and didn't even get to 30 miles per hour and it was just screaming. So there's no chill, that's for sure. It definitely doesn't have any chill. It wants to go. It at least wants to sound like it's trying to go. That's probably a better way to say that. It's always trying hard. I do like the dash, the tack right across the top. You have a gear indicator, a big speedometer. It's a nice clean setup. But this exhaust is so different for a sports bike. It's got such a different tone to it. I didn't expect it to have that brap brap sound like a dirt bike almost. I mean, that kind of sounds like a 450. I will say I really love this black, matte black on shiny black combination. These headlights they're just a really nice angle. They got the angry eyes. Overall, I mean, the fit and finish of this bike for being a beginner level motorcycle, I mean, this thing probably doesn't even cost $6,000. It's not an expensive bike, but it looks pretty beautiful. As far as I'm aware, the only thing the owner has done to this is flash it and put an exhaust on it. So I'm not a huge fan of crotch rockets overall. I've never been a fan of these clip-on handlebars, like low, drop your shoulders, really in the bike. But I would say probably because this is more of a beginner bike, it's set up pretty comfortable. Like, I don't find this to be an uncomfortable ride one bit. It feels nice. Jess really wanted to try a sports bike. She's had this itch. I think someday she's going to find herself on a racetrack. That's where she wants to be. So we got this up here in Florida, and it seems to be a pretty nice fit for her. She looks really comfortable on the bike. She looks like she's having fun. Most importantly, she wasn't intimidated right off the bat. She was a little like concerned that she was holding the gears too long because she wasn't used to that sports bike tuning. And honestly, I felt the same way on that Kawasaki 900. I'm just not used to that tuning, but it's not too weird. It's just, you know, it makes a lot of noise. We're just not used to making so much noise going down the road. That's really what that feels like. It's like, why am I being so obnoxious? Do I need to be this obnoxious? But I guess that's what the bike wants. It's definitely got a nice first gear. Like, I can really putt. It's not twitchy on me, but then I can also accelerate. But by 20 miles per hour, it's loud. I mean, it wants to get out of first gear by 20. I know that I was only at 8,000 RPMs and it can go to 13, but I don't see any reason to be up that high. Not in a residential neighborhood, at least. Like, even at 7,000 RPMs, it's saying, all right, I'm here, let's go. But I also feel pretty comfortable on this bike. It doesn't feel that small to me. I have a nice bend in my legs. I have a nice wrap around the tank. I'm not that uncomfortable. I'm definitely leaning forward, but I feel like my back is pretty straight up. Just a little bend in the shoulders. One thing that Jess did talk about, though, is she did not find the brakes to be very strong. So her bike has a single disc in the front, but it's a Brembo, so it's got that luxury, you know, high quality kind of feel. And these have some, you know, some house brakes, single disc in the front as well. Being a beginner bike, they're not using very sporty braking packages on this bike, but she was saying that she felt the need to use front and back brake pretty aggressively. She wasn't just relying on the front brake the way she would when she rides her bike. So that's one thing to note. I can't tell you from my just bopping around the neighborhood that I feel the brakes are that underpowered, but I could do a quick stop real quick and see. Yeah, I definitely locked the back up a little bit. The ABS had to kick in. It means the front tire's not really holding up as well as it could because my back tire wants to slide. But I mean, considering how fast I feel people are going to ride this bike, which is not really that fast, they're definitely adequate. I also I feel like this bike is pretty nimble, but I feel that the Kawasaki 900 is way more flickable. I think this bike is a little longer. It feels a little longer. I'm sure in like the deep corners when I'm really leaning over, I would like its balance points, but for just overall like obstacle avoiding, the Kawasaki feels a lot more nimble and versatile for avoiding just random imperfections on the road. Also, the engine heat on here, it's only a 300cc engine, and I think that it's putting off more engine heat than that 900 is. I was very pleasantly surprised because it's pretty warm in Florida right now. We're at 85 degrees. It's not cool. And I didn't get hot one time riding that 900 yesterday. And Jess was complaining about being hot on this bike all day, so that's one thing. It's probably because it's fully faired. It's not getting as much natural cooling as the open exposed 4-cylinder to my left. But all in all, these are great bikes. They were fun, and we got a pretty good rate on renting them at $50 a day. So I would say I would definitely ride them again. And if somebody's in the market for a bike like this, I think both of these are pretty good options. The Kawasaki is really not even that expensive. It's less than $10,000, and it's got balls. To say it simply, if you want something to blast around on and you're not worried about all the tech, this bike really fits that bill. It blasts. I've really enjoyed it. I've been on the freeway, been riding like a lot of county roads and stuff on it, and it really holds up. Even without the wind protection, I feel really comfortable at high speeds on this bike. And the Yamaha, Chess has really enjoyed too. So I would say that both of these bikes get a thumbs up. There might be some drawbacks to the brake package on the Yamaha, the engine heat, but for a beginner bike, I still think it fits the bill. The only thing I would say thumbs down on, which is very to be expected, you're not really going to have passengers on these bikes. Like, this passenger throne has an angle to it. I don't even think you want to sit on that. I don't know, maybe it's comfortable for some. Doesn't look comfortable to me though. But yeah, fun bikes. Fun in the Sunshine State. saying goodbye to the rentals. Jess is returning hers to ridershare right now. Well, to a ridershare renter. Bye-bye, little Yamaha. Back to riding doubles. I know, sports bike 2 up is not the most comfortable. But here we are. Very what? Yeah, you're up on a bump. This bike loves accelerating. It's pretty serious. When we get on Sumter, I'll give you a little second and third gear action. But this street sucks, because it's all single lane. Alright, you ready for it? Hold on. I didn't even open more than 50% because I didn't want to jerk you. It's fun. And I'm babying it. I would be curious to see how you like this bike. I was just a little concerned that it was a bit jumpy for you. But I think that you would enjoy it. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Anything I should know?
Just that when you're shifting gears and you're letting the clutch out to kind of just be prepared. It likes to jump, so just to be more cautious than you would expect to on any other bike, and that should be what keeps you from doing a wheelie. Okay. But it is really smooth.
You really do a wheelie though?
Oh yeah, this bike will do wheelies for days. And she's off. That bike is a whole lot of fun. I have a feeling now that Jess is getting off of her little R3 300cc bike and jumping on this guy, she's going to never want to go back. The only difference is that that little Yamaha weighs 100 pounds less. For sure. No, I gotta go. What? Okay. Just when you get back, kind of, put it in the driveway.
Okay, I'll be right back.
All right. So how was it?
What?
How was it?
I love this.
Nice. What's the main difference you noticed?
Everything.
Yeah, everything feels more premium.
What?
More smooth.
Sorry, my
more
music
fast.
is playing. But it's way smoother. It accelerates way better. It's riding position is nice.
Yeah, I love the riding position. Now you know the difference between a beginner sports bike and a crazy sports bike. Say what?
How much does this bike cost?
8,000. It's not that bad. It's a little ugly in my taste, but it really rides nice, and that to me is worth it. All right, time to go back to your home. Yay, there's the bridge. I like this bridge.